2026 has started with a lot of controversy for Donald Trump's presidency. He is facing accusations of breaking the law abroad and at home, and a big legal inquiry that has taken up most of our broadcast tonight with that terrible shooting in Minneapolis.
This is absolutely bombshell for Donald Trump, because Trump thought he had moved past the Epstein story. He thought if he just ignored it long enough, if Pam Bondi kept stonewalling Congress, if the Department of Justice kept slow-walking document releases, everyone would eventually forget and move on to the next controversy. He thought he could distract us with Greenland or Venezuela or whatever shiny object he waves around next. But what just happened, what Bill Clinton just did, has brought the entire Epstein scandal roaring back to the front page. And Trump is absolutely panicking because this is the one story he cannot afford to have dominating headlines right now. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, please subscribe. That's why we built John Brown Show, to bring you real stories and real context. Bill Clinton was subpoenaed by the House Oversight Committee to testify about his connections to Jeffrey Epstein. This wasn't a surprise. The committee has been investigating Epstein's network of powerful associates for months. They want to know who knew what, who participated, who covered up. And Clinton's name has been all over the flight logs and witness statements for years. So the committee issued a subpoena, ordered Clinton to appear for a closed-door deposition, and Clinton just refused to show up. Share this video with everyone you know, because what happened next is where this becomes an absolute disaster for Trump. House Oversight Chairman James Comer held a press conference announcing they're moving forward with contempt charges against Clinton, that Clinton ignored a lawful congressional subpoena, that he's refusing to answer questions about his relationship with a convicted sex trafficker, and that Congress is going to hold him accountable by voting to hold him in contempt next week. Now, on the surface, you might think Trump loves this. Clinton refusing to testify makes him look guilty, makes it seem like he has something to hide, gives Trump and his allies ammunition to attack Democrats and deflect from Trump's own Epstein connections. But here's why this is actually a nightmare scenario for Trump. Because the more attention this story gets, the more people start asking questions that Trump desperately doesn't want asked. Make sure you're subscribed to John Brown Show, because think about what Clinton refusing to testify really means. It means there's something serious enough in his relationship with Epstein that he's willing to face contempt charges rather than answer questions under oath. That's not nothing. That suggests there are answers he cannot give without creating massive legal or political problems for himself. And if that's true for Clinton, what does that say about everyone else in Epstein's orbit who's also refusing to cooperate, like Donald Trump, who signed the Epstein Transparency Act promising full disclosure of all documents, who claimed he barely knew Epstein despite decades of documented friendship, who has fought tooth and nail to prevent his own testimony or any meaningful release of the files he promised to make public. If Clinton's refusal to testify suggests guilt, what does Trump's obstruction suggest? That's the problem Trump is facing. Clinton's contempt drama is bringing massive attention back to the Epstein story, and that attention inevitably leads to questions about why Trump's Department of Justice has released less than 1% of the Epstein files despite having had months to review them and despite claiming they had 200 lawyers working on it. About why Trump himself won't testify before Congress when Clinton is being dragged in. About what exactly Trump is hiding in those files that's worth breaking the law to conceal. Think about what that means for Trump's political position. Republicans in Congress, his own party members, are furious about the DOJ stonewalling. Thomas Massie has been particularly vocal, saying the contempt referrals against DOJ officials for breaking the Epstein Transparency Act won't expire at the end of this Congress, that future administrations could still prosecute, that there will be consequences for this obstruction even after Trump leaves office. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's already turned against Trump on multiple issues, is ramping up pressure on the Epstein files. His own base, which was obsessed with Epstein conspiracies for years, is starting to wonder why their guy is covering up instead of exposing. And now Clinton refusing to testify creates this perfect contrast. Comer is holding press conferences saying Clinton needs to be held accountable for refusing to answer questions. And reporters are immediately asking, well, what about Trump? Why won't Trump testify? Why is the sitting president exempt from the same accountability you're demanding from Clinton? Comer's response was telling. He said Trump has answered thousands of questions about Epstein, that reporters ask him about it all the time, that you can't haul a sitting president before Congress. But that explanation doesn't hold up, because Trump hasn't answered questions under oath. He hasn't sat for a deposition where lying has consequences. He's just made vague statements to reporters that he can later claim were misunderstood or taken out of context. If Comer really believes the Epstein investigation is serious, if he really thinks associates need to be questioned under oath, then Trump should be first in line, not exempt because of his current position, not protected because he's the president. He should be answering questions just like Clinton and everyone else who flew on those planes and attended those parties and maintained those relationships. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because the timing of this Clinton drama makes everything worse for Trump. This is happening right as DOJ is admitting they've only released 12,000 documents out of 2 million. Less than 1% after claiming they'd completed their review. After claiming they had massive teams of lawyers working around the clock. After promising transparency and full disclosure. Bipartisan groups in Congress are now demanding an external audit of the review process. They want to know why it's taking so long, why such a tiny fraction has been released. What exactly is in those files that requires this level of protection? Democratic senators are putting heat specifically on Trump's chief of staff, who claimed in an interview that she'd reviewed the files and Trump appears in them, but isn't doing anything awful. If that's true, if there's nothing damaging, why not release everything and end the speculation? The answer is obvious. There is something damaging. Something serious enough that Trump is willing to break the law he signed to prevent it from coming out. Something that would create massive political and possibly legal problems if the public saw it. And Clinton's refusal to testify is making people wonder what that something is. Think about what happened at that Ford plant. A worker called Trump a pedophile protector to his face. Trump was so furious he flipped the guy off, lost his composure completely. That's not the reaction of someone who's confident the truth will exonerate him. That's the reaction of someone who knows there's damaging information out there and is terrified it's going to surface. Trump's whole strategy has been to make this story go away, to let time pass and attention shift to other controversies, to bury it under an avalanche of other scandals and hope people forget. But Clinton refusing to testify ensures that won't happen. This story is back in headlines. Cable news is covering it. Social media is exploding with speculation. And all that attention makes it impossible for Trump to keep hiding. Share this video because the legal implications are serious. If Congress holds Clinton in contempt, there will be votes and proceedings and continued media coverage. Every step of that process keeps Epstein in the news, keeps people asking questions, keeps pressure building on Trump to release the files and answer questions himself. And here's the thing about contempt charges. They're real. They carry potential criminal penalties. Clinton isn't just facing political embarrassment. He could face prosecution if he continues refusing to comply. That raises the stakes dramatically. Because if Clinton ultimately decides that testifying is less damaging than contempt prosecution, he might actually show up and start answering questions. And if he does that, his testimony could implicate other people, could reveal connections and activities that were previously hidden, could open up whole new lines of inquiry. Trump cannot afford that. Cannot afford Clinton sitting in front of Congress describing parties and flights and conversations that might include Trump. Cannot afford witnesses being called, documents being subpoenaed, a full investigation unfolding in public. Because unlike Trump, Congress can force testimony and document production, can hold people in contempt if they refuse, can pursue investigations that DOJ under Trump's control is blocking. Make sure you're subscribed because the political damage compounds daily. Trump is already losing constantly according to recent court rulings. Federal judges are blocking his policies left and right. Cutting funding to blue states ruled illegal. Shutting down wind farms ruled illegal. Retaliating against pediatricians ruled illegal. Cutting election funding ruled illegal. He's getting smacked down by courts multiple times a day on multiple issues. And now, on top of all that legal losing, the Epstein story is exploding again. His base is questioning him. Republicans in Congress are threatening contempt charges against his DOJ officials. Clinton's refusal to testify is generating massive headlines, and Trump has no good options for how to respond. If he releases the files, whatever damaging information is in them comes out and creates scandals. If he continues stonewalling, the obstruction itself becomes the scandal and erodes support from his own party. If he attacks Clinton, people ask why he won't testify himself. If he stays quiet, the story dominates coverage without his preferred narrative. Think about what that means heading toward midterms. Democrats have a perfect attack line. Trump promised transparency on Epstein. Trump signed a law requiring release of documents. Trump is now breaking that law and hiding information. What is he protecting? What doesn't he want you to know? That's devastating messaging because it's all true and documented. And Republicans trying to defend Trump get caught in impossible contradictions. If they say Clinton should be held accountable for refusing to testify, why not Trump? If they say the Epstein investigation matters, why is DOJ releasing less than 1% of files? If they claim Trump barely knew Epstein, why is Trump fighting so hard to keep documents sealed? The worker at the Ford plant calling Trump a pedophile protector captures the mood shift that's happening. People are done accepting excuses, done believing denials, done waiting for promised transparency that never comes. And when Trump loses his composure and flips someone off for asking about it, that reinforces every suspicion about what he's hiding. And Hillary Clinton is also scheduled to testify Wednesday and has indicated she won't appear either. So this drama is going to continue. More contempt proceedings, more headlines, more attention on exactly the story Trump cannot afford to have dominating news cycles. And Comer's investigation has subpoenaed 10 different people connected to Epstein. That means potentially 10 different contempt proceedings if people refuse to cooperate, 10 different news cycles, 10 different opportunities for damaging information to surface, 10 different reminders that Trump signed a transparency law he's now violating to protect himself. The admission that 2 million documents still exist under review is staggering. That's not a normal volume. That's not something you review in a few weeks with even large teams. That's evidence of extensive operations and connections involving powerful people. And the fact that only 12,000 documents totaling about 100,000 pages have been released means 99% is still hidden. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because what happens next depends on whether Congress follows through. If they actually hold Clinton in contempt and pursue prosecution, the pressure on everyone else in Epstein's orbit intensifies. If they back down, Trump escapes again and continues stonewalling. But Massey and others seem determined to push this. They're not letting it go. They're not moving on to other issues. And Trump's recent losses in court show he's vulnerable. Show judges aren't buying his arguments. Show legal accountability is possible even against a sitting president. That emboldens Congress to push harder, makes them think maybe they can actually force disclosure. Maybe they can hold DOJ officials accountable. Maybe they can break through the obstruction. Think about what Rachel Maddow laid out about Trump's losing streak. Multiple court decisions blocking his policies. In one day. Multiple times a day. That's not normal. That's a president who's consistently on the wrong side of the law, who's pushing boundaries until judges slap him down. And if judges are willing to block his policies across multiple issues, maybe they'll be willing to enforce the Epstein Transparency Act too. That's Trump's nightmare. Courts ordering document release. DOJ officials facing contempt charges. Congress investigating publicly. Clinton and others testifying under oath. The whole cover-up collapsing because he pushed too far and institutions finally pushed back. The Republican revolt on war powers shows his party isn't automatically backing him anymore. 5 Republican senators crossed over to block his Venezuela plans. 17 House Republicans broke ranks on healthcare. Those are significant defections. People willing to oppose Trump publicly when they think he's wrong. That same dynamic could apply to Epstein. Republicans like Massey, who actually care about transparency, might break ranks and demand accountability even if it hurts their president. We're watching multiple institutional failures trying to correct simultaneously. Courts blocking illegal policies, Congress investigating obstruction, Republicans breaking ranks, base supporters questioning loyalties, Clinton refusing testimony and creating drama. All of it converging at the worst possible time for Trump. And underlying everything is the question nobody wants to say out loud, but everyone is thinking. What exactly is in those files that's worth all this obstruction? What connections exist that Trump cannot afford revealed? What activities occurred that require this level of cover-up? Because the more Trump fights to keep things hidden, the more obvious it becomes that there's something serious being protected. This is the bombshell Trump feared most. Not because of what Clinton did or didn't do, but because Clinton's refusal to testify brings nuclear-level attention back to the story Trump needs dead and buried. And that attention creates pressure that Trump cannot control or contain or distract from. The Epstein files are back, the questions are back, the investigations are back, and Trump's obstruction is becoming the story because he cannot explain why transparency requires hiding 99% of documents. Stay tuned because this unfolds over coming weeks as contempt proceedings move forward and more people refuse to testify and pressure builds on Trump to release what he promised. The bombshell isn't what Clinton revealed. It's what his refusal to testify reveals about how serious this investigation could become if anyone actually starts cooperating and answering questions under oath.